Hello. Now, Ian, this is what I want to try to do today in the tutorial. I want to try and help you realise just how to help the children realise they are always in a fiction, though it becomes very truthful. Picasso says art is the means by which we realise truth. But the children have to never get mixed up between their real world, you know, no saying we'll go to Hawaii tomorrow,
Right.
because some of them won't want to go, that sort of thing. The second thing I want to do is look at how progression works in drama, so that you've got a hold on where are we going. I've got a grip on the thing. The next thing I want to help you understand is that you're going to be dealing with tension, productive tension, the thing that keeps us interested, not conflict.
Right.
You're not discussing conflict, us against you or them against us and so on. It's always tension that holds people together in the theatre, because it's about bondings, the exploration of bondings. And bondings are always being forged strongly or broken quickly or slowly changing over, you see, and it's that we're after.
Right.
And the last thing, I want to try to give you a handle on how to keep tracking very carefully through all the work you're doing, in this case on science, so that you're keeping a check on how much am I doing on skills, how much am I doing on helping them get on together and learn on each other as well as on me, how much am I following through the science programme, and so on, you see. And I think that's really important. And probably you and the children together could keep those records, because there's no reason why you should take on all that. They could do that with you, provided they can see how to do it. You know, you can give them a model. And this will tie in very much with what we were dealing last time on episodes.
Right.
Because each time you do a different episode, you'll need to check round. Did that episode touch in on the skills? Can I exploit skills because that episode will enable me to do it? It's that kind of thing. Right, so let us begin. Now, the first thing is that the children and you then will always know when we enter the drama, it is constructed by us.
Right.
We don't believe it. We agree to use our drama eyes to acknowledge now we're in a no penalty zone. It's a no penalty zone where we can try things out and study what it is we're trying to understand about people,
Right.
you see. And words like, okay then, shall we agree that, are all ways of making these contracts. They know now we're in the drama. Now sometimes you can do it by just a shift of your own voice. I mean, frequently, and they never get mixed up, you know, I might say something within role, and so you are saying to me that we're not going to get this money, we can't deal with this new, you know, what do you think about that? Do you think, and they know straight away, we're now discussing about, not we're in the now time of it. Right. The second thing that you'll always have to consider is, do you want your drama, whatever episode you're dealing with, to first be constructed in such a way that you get the children's knowledge before you give them any? That choice will always be available to you. Things like, the trouble is I don't know how to arrange supermarket shelves. You know, it might be that. That sort of question will give you their response before you have to say, let's arrange a supermarket shelf, I'll put the tins up here. Because that way you're modelling and you should be waiting, if that's how you feel.
I see.
The third thing is that the power of the human imagination will nearly always in our culture be expressed through words. We don't naturally dance it.
Yes.
You know, we don't naturally say, sit down, I'll tell you a story about it. We tend to say, carve it up, and our experience comes out in chat and talk and print and so on. And obviously you want to exploit that if you want to get into your English curriculum.
Right.
And finally, of course, and we've been through this before, you will always be calling up the genuine class behaviours. So you need to kind of protect the class from falling into habits that become destructive for the drama. So if you're nervous about that, with any new idea you're bringing forward, you might have to just say, no, for this group I'll take it a bit slower. I'll give it a 5-minute lesson to get it going. Now, I don't look like this, I don't demonstrate this in teaching, but it's what I try to be. I believe that you have to be pedagogically very, very strong. You have to know your stuff. Now, I don't know science, so I use the best tools I can, and sometimes I have to go for help.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't pretend I know something if I don't, because I think it's a good strength with children to say, we're going to have to find this out better.
Yeah.
So pedagogically, I want to be as strong as I can, and academically, I want to be as strong as I can. But in actual fact, philosophically, I want to try to empower them. The trouble is, I look like I've got the best parts and I'm the one in charge.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, if you listen to what I'm saying, and if you listen with your pores when I'm teaching, I am actually trying always to hand the power over. But sometimes, you see, you've got to look like you're carrying them along in order to hand the power over.
Yes.
Now, I would think your instinct is to be philosophically self-effacing. I think you'll be more capable than I of leading from the back, you know, and I do envy it when I see it. I think, oh, I wish I could do that. Maybe men can do it better than women, I don't know. So, frequently, all through your drama work, you will be constantly with the children making these contracts for now shift in your head.
Right.
Now you need your drama eyes.
Yeah.
And one of the things you may want to do is actually teach children they've got drama eyes and they, at their will, summon them. Far too many teachers try to carry that summoning against the kids, whereas if they go with it, you can say, okay, for this, you know, we're really going to need our drama eyes because I'm going to have to pick a big fish up. Now, this big fish I've got because I've got drama eyes, but have you got yours? Because if we're going to get this fish cut up for dinner for 52 orphans, you know, your drama eyes, and you can actually, and they'll say, yeah, I think so. Wait a minute, give us another minute. Yeah, it's got scales on, you know, and you rub it up the wrong way, you don't have to. And you're feeding the drama eyes at their will. Because you're not trying to lay it on them, you're trying to make them do it to themselves.
You're just calling up the drama when you need it.
Yes, because that's what it's about. If we can't call it up, we're at the mercy of it. Because if we can call it up, we can put it aside.
Yeah.
And you see, you want drama to work efficiently. You don't want to be in the drama all the time. You want to be in that curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay. Now then, there's something to do with quality here, and I've always tried to explain what I mean when I think a moment of authenticity has happened. When you look and you say, we really got there that time. They really did understand something. We had no fancy histrionics. Everything was right. And I came across Ted Hughes's poem. He calls it The Thought Fox. And of course what he's describing is a poet sitting in front of a blank page, trying to see fox. And you see, we hear that he sees nothing out there. Then he slowly sees something's entering, and then the dark snow and a fox's nose. He's trying to catch this. And then in the last verse, you see, he says, till with a sudden sharp, hot stink of fox, it enters the dark hole of the head. The window is starless still, the clock ticks, but the page is printed. And when I try to think that was the hot stink of fox, that's what I'm trying for all the time. Now, you don't get the hot stink of fox in the drama, the moment when we all know that is how it might have been. Stumbling on authenticity, you get it through the long, slow building in of all the relevant elements, and that bit has to be left to chance. Now, the problem is people head for that. They don't. It's the plough horse image. The horse that pulls a plough never overcomes the inertia. It pulls against the inertia, Whereas the horse that pulls the wheeled vehicle overcomes the inertia and then stops pulling. But the plough horse gently, smoothly knows its shoulder is always to the plough. And that's where I feel you've got to be. That's why we've taken such a long time on all this thinking round how to get the material and so on.
Yes.
And why people will say, she'll spend an hour just nattering on. Well, I am never just nattering on. I'm slowly building stage by stage. So what I want us to look at now is how, in fact, to negotiate progress and to keep a feeling of it. And we must do it, of course, on your material. So we're going to be looking at how to get into this business of air exists invisibly. Now, I have to diagram things because I got that kind of mind, you see. And we haven't had time to think this right through yet in terms of your material. Because you're really just at the start. Now, I'll image it and you tell me if I'm making it clear. And because I'm left-handed, I'll start at this side. You see, you get something going a bit. Now, what we got going in our last tutorial was once upon a time.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got once upon a time here. Now, you as a teacher say, do I want that to enter the cognitive, logical ways of thinking? In which case, let's say we'll take it upwards. We'll put the cognitive side of the brain there.
Right.
And we'll put the affective side here. Not because this is less, but I've got a flat board, right? So if you say, I'd like to take them a bit here into perhaps some recording of something. Not just talking about it, but later reflecting on it and writing it up.
Right.
So at that stage you say, well, out of this once upon a time thing, could I just do a little bit of skill work up on this side? And I see it as a cave, you see, it's a sort of exploration of this domain. So I might say, look, let's look in the library box or on our shelves or wherever you've got in school. See how many things you can find starting with once upon a time by tomorrow. Shall we say, when could we do it best? So we'll do a bit of research. And when you find it, take a notebook with you. When you find it, make a note of which book you found it in, if possible the page, and anything at all about the title.
Yes.
And when you bring them back, so here I've said I'm going up into some skill work, some research. How you program it is up to what you think they can manage. You might say, in twos, if you all take 10 minutes out today, we'll keep a record, you're back up to here again, we'll keep a record of who's done their 10 minutes.
Yes.
And you see, 15 may have found the same story because you're limited on how many you've got and so on. If you think of it in advance, you could say, okay, well, I could say, I don't know how you're fixed, I could pick all my kids' books up, shove them in the car, bring them in that day, and we'll all browse through. I think I found something here that's once upon a time-ish. So it's gone up there.
Right.
However, if you want it down here, you see, you may do that, and you say, well, I'm still on this. I can exploit it now a bit down here. So down here it might be, there's a sort of feeling about stories that begin once upon a time, isn't there? I'll tell you what, I'll start a once upon a time story and we'll weave it together. So now we're into, we're back in before the dawn of time. So my next little sort of move forward dramatically, before the dawn of time. Now you see, here I might be dealing with dates, like we were looking at in our last tutorial with dates. And so here I might say, okay, can I get a bit up here out of this?
Yeah.
Now you see, I might say, well, they gave me some very interesting dates there. I wonder if I've got any resource whereby we could all think, what kinds of things might people be wearing when you think of 1742? Or, I'm just wondering what they used for bedclothes, and just see whether you can get a historical sense. Now, you might have some reference books you can use. You might have an encyclopedia. You might have the history of England in pictures. Whatever you've got, you might get a little bit fixation on every time you get a date, people behaved slightly differently. They had different mannerisms. They might have had different clothes. Their horses were different than their motor cars, and so on. Just to see if you can find out whether they are phased by dates or whether some are beginning to get this sense of that definitely was before that. Or you can say, look, see whether tonight when you go home, and I'm always wary about this, because one is imposing on parents at this point, and it's easy to do it light-heartedly. Ask if you can look among your socks, safest socks, and put them in order of what's the oldest. And just have a chat about it, because you might not remember, because somebody else might buy your socks. But just sort of think, now, those are my youngest socks. These are my these are my nearly oldest, and then see whether you can put some dates on. Because it's about recognising periods. And then you see, I might say, and when you come back tomorrow, we'll write down how we got the feeling. Now, those are older. Might be they've worn a bit thinner, or they've got holes, or they're tighter, or whatever it is. So you're fixing a date and the sense of passage of time and the ageing thing. Right. Now, of course, anybody can invent what they want. I'm not saying this is clever. I'm saying that's what I think of, because I got some dates to go on. And socks, well, it doesn't cost anything. If you've only got 3 pairs of socks, you know which is your newest. But if I want to come down here, you see, it might be to do with, I wonder if I could only paint how it must have been before the dawn of time. So you see, I might say, I could sit here while you paint, and I'll just keep on saying it. It was before the dawn of time. Or I might say, no, if I do that, I'm dominating. I'll do a tape loop if I have a minute at dinner time, and it'll keep on saying, before the dawn of time. Or I might say, no, I won't do that. I know a picture, and I know where I can get it quickly, that is kind of about nothing much, but it's this feeling. There's no people in it. I don't want to impose images like that, but it might be just an image. I mean, I'm seeing an image almost of sunlight just filtering through, and there's no human, there's no sense of it's a forest or a whatever it is. And I might say, let's keep this in front of us, and we'll all sort of, I might say, before the dawn of time, and just say what you think went on. So that's firmly down here. Now, that is how I see progression. Now, that's my 2 lessons. Out of those 2 lessons, I've decided I can get 2 more. This is going to be skill-based. It's going to be record-making. It's going to demand language. And this is going to be in that ringing round area of apprehension rather than comprehension. And I don't mean fear. This summoning thing. Now, you see, our next stage we haven't thought of yet, our next episode. So I'll just invent one that I've actually thought about quite seriously, but you may not want to do it. Now, I've thought of a way to try this. You see, I'm trying to get right into the science, but I'm going at it first through this affective zone. So what I want the children to do, if possible, is explain to me what they know about atmosphere and the wind, you see. So this is a way I might try. Now, it's going to mean rearranging your classroom. You're going to have to get your desks in a line in somehow, so 24 children can gather round a long sheet of paper. I mean, we're using fairly narrow paper, but this would do. The cheapest paper you can find will do, but it might have to be displayed. So, and it needs to be joined. Don't give them all separate sheets of paper. Now, up in the north here, we'd say, if we were talking about our grams, we'd say, my nana, you see.
Right.
Now, you see, it's affective, my nana. People, my nana told me that you must never try to see the wind. And when the wind blows, she said, go in your house and close the door. What did your nana tell you to do when the wind blows? Now, you see, some children won't want to draw anything. They won't have an idea at this stage because the teachers don't tend to talk like that. So this is quite an upsetting situation. So you need a let out. And if you have nothing to say that your nana told you, you just say, my nana has not told me anything about where the wind, you see? Right. So you can take it back. Did your nana tell you anything? And your nana? And you might get quite a run of people whose nana told them nothing, you see. Now, people worry about this. They think, well, the kids are not doing it. Nothing's happening. But it is. I don't know what you're thinking about your nana. All I know is at the moment there is nothing for you to add. But it will begin. And if it comes right round to me, 24 moves, and their nana's never told them nothing, then on. And my nana also said, when the wind blows really hard and you have closed your door, never try to guess why the wind blows. Cover your ears, and I can't draw, you see, and they might laugh, and I cover my ears with my hands, because the wind must not see you, because you cannot see the wind. Now, at the moment, nothing much is happening, but slowly, the idea that you can't see it and that it affects things. So you see, I might move it on a bit further. My father says, when the wind blows so that all the grass is made flat, then the animals are afraid and they hide from the wind. So you moved it now. You've moved it from Gran to Father, and you moved it from me to the earth. And so it can go on. And you will gradually, you see, assemble enough to start the beginnings of a myth. Now, the question after that, then you'd have your next episode. Now, here we've got this then.
Yes.
We've got a long piece of paper. So, and I can't do it without the real children here, on that long piece of paper I can classify how many aspects of the wind have emerged from the children. So you see, I might say, right, let's just pin this up. Those people, not us, those people whose grands told them this and whose dads told them that, let's see how many things they knew about the wind.
Yeah.
So I've taken it up here.
Right, so you're recording.
So, can you keep looking at it, and if you discover anything else we know about the wind, or they knew about the wind, whichever you feel you want to say, then you get your list. And you're listening for accuracy. Up in that science thing. You're listening for accuracy. And you're listening for mythology. Now, I reckon the next 15-minute lesson, you see, might well be, I mean, you've got 4 15-minute lessons now, because one of them has been making this, and the next lesson is interpreting it. And it's very matter of fact, is that. It's business, it's laboratory stuff. Right, just put a cross against that, we've dealt with it. Right, use a different colour then we can see, and so on. Do we agree with that? Okay, let's all tick it if we agree with it. You're actually resonating back. We all think that's correct. Now you see the next question I might ask up here. When our grands told us all this, would you say they told us a fact when they said that? Or have they just given us an opinion? So you see, we might say, well, it is a fact that when the wind blows, the grass flattens. Okay, well, that's a fact. Right, fact. And what should we put for fact? We put a big F for fact. Okay, fact. Are there any other facts? And you're keeping up here. Now, that piece of paper now has 4 colours on it, maybe. Facts, opinions, we agree. These are the different things we know about the wind. Now, you see, I think I'd be ready for my 4th episode. And to me, it would be something like, we're still in the affective mode. The people who in the beginning dawn of time, see, I've got to use my all once upon a time, I think we should just consider how many ways they would know there was a thing called the wind. Now, that's a question that seems to be up here, but I'm keeping it firmly rooted in the dawn of time. So I'm doing a double thing there. Does that make a little bit of clarity for you? And I'm going to get a myth, because out of what they tell me, people would know at the dawn of time about the wind. And we might get things like, oh, well, they'd feel it blowing on their faces. And I would say, yes, sort of like this. And I know this is going to be a very important affective book. It won't be cognitive so much as affective, because the artist has painted most of it. Now, I like this one, and of course we've got it in colour if we want it. But this one I like the black and white first, because you see, it's got no overtones of colour that affect me, you see. But I can't, do you get the feeling of a wind there? Yes. So, that's one way of knowing the wind happens. So, if we can get a list of all the ways people knew, we can get them down in front of us, because I can list them on the board. And from that cognition, I can say, you know, I think what we could do is we could make an explanation from people who never saw the wind, who never saw the word written down, who only knew it by the way it blew on them and moved things and destroyed things, how they'd explain that to other people. Would you like to try it? And so, you see, we would start our myth. For that, I need another lesson. And you'll find you need longer than 5 minutes for this one. Now, you can decide if you'll compose a myth in the cognitive mode, or if you'll compose a myth in the drama or the affective mode. If we do it in the cognitive mode, it might be, well, look, I reckon we could get into groups and we could decide what we should tell people about the wind. So in groups, they natter it out and write a little bit about it. This is what we think they should be told. That wind is dangerous, it can destroy houses. However, if I want to do it in the affective mode, I would say probably something. I mean, I'm inventing as I go, because you have to, you've got to clear it in your head first. I might think to myself, how would I gather the people for a myth-making magic? Now, that's where in your classroom, you see, you may say, we'll go in a close corner, in that little room where your computer lives, and we'll gather round, and we'll make the terrible noise of the wind, and this is the time when we have to understand who is giving this to us, and we'll make our myth in the eye of the storm, or the teeth of the gale. Does that make sense? So if I choose it that way, it'll look dramatic. And the myth will be born a bit like the thought fox. And some of it will be hitty and some of it will be missy, but there will be a God born.
Right. Yeah.
Now, if we get a God born in Tempest, that's when we take it back up there and say, usually people remembered these things in the dawn of time. They said them to each other. They said, it will soon be the time of the great wind, and we'd better be ready and try to make it not happen this year. So we might go now into our little room and try to make it not happen by telling the tale of the great wind, you see. And then, you see, we might move to let us paint the God of the wind. Now, you can paint it in words, put it up there. Paint it in pictures, put it down there. Paint it in dance. Sing a song. You can try anything you like that you feel capable of. So, to me, that's how progression works. Now, it isn't anything to do, you see, with getting the drama finished. It's to do with sustaining the drama to energize the curriculum, because there's always a context, you see. And you can shift the number of tasks the children get engaged in because of what you yourself perceive is an opportunity. Now, you see, there are thousands of paintings of the effect of wind. There are thousands of graphs. You see, you might prefer to go to this kind of material, or you can go to this. The choices are yours. You invent the curriculum. That is not the curriculum. That's a dream. But a dream has to be won through what were the children doing? And why were they doing it in that way rather than this way? And you are responsible for the choices. And of course, if you want to get it, where have I put my chalk? If you want to get it further into the academic, you might take one very narrow task. A lot more research into how many kinds of stories begin with once upon a time. Or take any beginning of any story and see if you can spot the ones that will be fantasy in the first sentence. Or see if you can spot the ones that are likely to be modern. It's going to be ordinary people. Or whether it's going to be a story about heroes. In other words, can you predict when you open a book and read the first sentence, this is going to be a legend. Or this is going to be one of them things where they think all the time and they don't do much. So it's teaching people how to predict. Because if they're going to use this kind of book, they have to predict in that kind of way. They have to be ready for the information in that kind of system. If they're going to get it from this system, they're going to learn quite differently. Neither is better. But they are both terribly important if we're going to make that thing live. Nobody discusses how to do that. Not the people who invent it. They just say this is what will be done. But the how to do it, you see. Now then, yes, we're going to ask something.
You would use both, though.
Oh, yes, 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 I would. And another one I'd use is this. I mean, I'm just lucky. I found this the other day, The Weathermonger. It's got descriptions of fog and so on. It's all in the affective zone. It's a modern book to read to children about weather. But it's about the power of the people in those days who could make weather. So it's necromancy. So it fits very well in a third leg of this, you see. Right, now let's see where we go. I think you've got an image there of how it might work. Now then, in all the things I've done, I've been trying to demonstrate to you that tension is a factor, productive tension. When I said, I bet you can guess when I've got once written,
Yes.
when we were trying it earlier, that is a productive tension. It keeps them hooked in. as much as possible. I mean, not everybody's hooked in most of the time. I mean, lots of people just drift off. You might have drifted off this last 5 minutes. I mean, that's how life is. So we have to look a bit at productive tension, because a lot of people think that drama is conflict. Us and them. Us against you. This against that. You know, well, it isn't. Tension is what drama's about, because it is about the bondings, the exploration of bondings between people all the time. The bondings of power, the bondings of influence, the bondings of events, the bondings between individuals, and so on. Polty says there's only 35 themes, and they're all bondings. Love requited, love unrequited, you know. I mean, anything you pick up is really about bondings if it's fictional. It's bound to be. Movies, anything. So we're looking at tension, and you could teach yourself to create productive tension. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples of it, and then we'll try and invent some. And this is your homework, really. You can make yourself into a playwright. See, you're not a play director when you work like this. You're a playwright. You're forging the elements of the material that, when together are worked on, make things happen. That's the playwright. This is an example of tension. Here we've got a group of 14-year-olds, mostly West Indians, right? It's just a lesson I happen to have experience on. And they wouldn't take their coats off. I don't mean they resisted. I knew they wouldn't take their coats off. As soon as they came in, their coats were on firmly, and their big Adidas bags with football gear in and all that was also there. And it was all put down as if to say, OK, then, you know. So I thought, right, I've got to do something with their coats on. It's not good saying, right, take your coats off, because that isn't how it is it? So I said, I'm glad you kept your coats on, because the child's shoe was found here. Now, I didn't know where I was going to go. I just knew the child's shoe. Coats, you search for kids that are missing. You see, that's all I've done. The child's shoe was found here. The woman says she went in, the mother said she went in, she got a couple of bags of sugar, and she left the kiddie playing on them machines, you know, with lamps and cars, you put something in. And when she came out, you know, she reckoned she was in about 7 minutes. So the sergeant said, now you see, I've thrown in some authority figure. So the sergeant said, and when she came out, no kid. But the kid's shoe was just outside the store. I can't remember the name of the store she was in. Well, what's that store on that corner? You know, somebody says Tesco's. Okay. Yeah, that's right, Tesco's. And over this end, there's somebody said a chemist. That's right, well, it's that corner. So the sergeant said, what we need is folk that know the area. They're the folk that'll help. Now, the mother went back to see whether the kid had gone home. No kid gone home. So I stopped there and said, do you think that sergeant was right? That folk who live in the area are more likely to be able to find a lost kid? Now, that's a reasonable question. It's quite out of the drama now. And they said yes. I said, well, how big shall the child's shoe be? Now, that's all it is. Stop me. Now, of course, it's risky. They might say, that big, and I have to forgive them. Ah, come off it. Come off it. Give us a chance. Now, you see, it's terrible when it gets like this. I don't know. I'm looking, and I don't care, but I know something will happen. Because you can't resist it, really. And they stopped it about there. They stopped it there because I'd done all that first. The mother, the sugar, keep your coats on, the sergeant, all that has woven this web. The child's shoe. And they said there, I said, so it's about a size, not sure, oh, about a 5, they said. 5 in kids' shoes. Okay, so it's a 5. So, and they stop. So the kid's about this, and the shoe's about this. and it hadn't gone to its grands. So the sergeant said, "We've got to move. So will you help?" Do you think it's reasonable to be asked? Yeah? Okay. Let's draw all the places a kid could go missing. So on our long sheet of paper, we start, and I learn what the town is to those guys there. It's full of bins that kids can get lost in. It's full of parks where dangerous things go on. It's got back alleys. It's got cars with open doors. The town is laid open for me, which I would never have known, because I don't live in their town, and I don't live in their heads about the town. Now that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about tension. Now people think tension is about not knowing the outcome. Now in a way it looks like it. Tell me. And it really is about decide, 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 but I'll give you time for the pressure to build. The outcome has to be known in advance. So my next question is important. Do you want the child to be all right when we find it? And I remember I haven't said her or him. It's their choice. Do you want the child to be all right when we find it? It's a long silence. We are inventing the trouble. We can decide how serious it is to be. And they said, all right. Just all right? Nearly all right? Thank God it's all right. They said, thank God. So it's dangerous. We know we'll find the child all right, only just, thank God. Right. Now, are we looking for a little girl or a little boy? Just all right, thank God. And the sergeant said, move. A little girl. Right. Now, we know the outcome. Now, a lot of teachers think, well, I mean, why bother with it? They've done it now. They know they're going to find it. But they haven't. The thing they don't know is how. How we're going to find it. And it will be built on tension after tension after tension. Of all these places you've drawn, which is likely to be most trouble to get there just in time? And they chose a park and a workman's hut with no windows, locked, and no sound, and a vast open space. So if we tried to creep up on it, we'd be seen or heard, and asphalt all round, for crinkly feet. Now you see what I mean by tension. Now you can teach yourself to do this. First, you know, it's always better to know what's going to be the end. Get rid of that. That way we'll make it slow. If we don't know the end, we'll find the kid in the first 5 minutes and teachers wonder why it's all over. It'll be not over for a month if we really get involved. You see what I mean? And it might have all sorts of writing reports, all kinds of things can come into it there. Now I'm going to give you a tension exercise. I'm going to give you a tension exercise. I suggest what we do is we say, the people are all searching for something. We're all looking, I mean it was a child in this case, but this has no tension in it yet. We're looking for something that somebody lost to see whether we can find it for them. So it's got to be in a context. So suppose we're looking for, let's say, a miner's lamp that the miner's going to need for his work, but he could manage if he had to, but he's not supposed to lose lamps, So we're looking for a miner's lamp, so we're people who live in a pit village trying to find it. It's as simple as that. Now, what sort of tension can we put in? We're looking on a rubbish tip for a miner's lamp.
we could put in that some rubbish is about to be dumped on the tip.
On top of it.
On top of it.
Yes. So there's a big bulldozer heading up the hill, and if we're not careful, they'll get it poured on before we've had time to look, and he knows he passed this way. Yes, so we're entering an energy from outside that we can't control. Like we couldn't control that the kid got taken away and left a shoe. Kids don't leave shoes if they haven't been actually taken, usually. So it's got to be an element of outside our control. Now you see, if you enter the drama with them, you can make that happen in no time. Shut up a minute, hang on. Oh, don't say the bulldozer's coming with some more rubbish. For goodness sake, see if you can head him off, Bill. So in no time, and the bulldozer exists. All you did was say it and worry, and it's there. Keep him back if you can. Is he there? And you may have to say, hang on a minute. Let's hear the bulldozer, because we've got to get it. It's got to happen to us. We've got to make it happen. Now that's one very, very useful tension. You've made me think of another one, which might well be, before we searched it, the bulldozer's going to come and take it all away. You know, it's that big scoop is just hanging over. Hey, just a minute, just a minute, just a minute. Have you been? And so, again, you see, you may instigate it. It's your right. The trouble is, people will say, look, you see, he invents all the drama. But actually what you're doing is just injecting enough to make the investment more. So what might have started by a not much of a bothering begins suddenly to have this tremendous pressure in it. I can think of another one. They do say around, this is a bit crude, they do say around here the old wellhead is. You know, somebody might fall down. I've not done that very well. But I could, given a bit of time, I could, you see. So there's pressure from outside forces in that way. There's pressure from hazards that might endanger us. There's pressure from not knowing quite when something will happen. The sergeant says, you know, get it tonight. You know, the orders are, the king's going to behead us if we don't. Whatever, you know, according to how you put the context in.
Or we're not supposed to be on the rubbish.
Yes, that's an excellent one. Get it quick before anybody realises, you see. And sometimes you put it as a slightly antisocial thing. You see, in a way, it's kind of antisocial in that it sounds a bit strange, this, but we're helping the police. We can choose to say, no, we'll take our coats off and we won't look for the kid. It's empowering them to refuse, in the case of my other one. So, obviously, in time, we can sit down and we can classify all these tensions so that you can say, well, because I know there's that kind tends to suit this class at this stage they're at, you see. So in terms of our tensions with our myth, the tension may be, it is the time when the great winds in the past have come. And it is very urgent that all the people are here. All the people. Where is the old woman? Where is the old woman? She must be found. Now you see, if they go look, they've a right to come back and say, she's sick. And will the magic work? Now, at that stage, I might say, hang on, where is the old woman? We can choose what we think would be the biggest problem about the old woman. You can make it as big as you like, but we'll have to cope with it. And one of us may have to take her place if she's the one that knows the tale, and so on. Does that make a bit of sense? Now, lastly today, I want to try to show you a way of keeping a track of your curriculum. So, I've done a small drawing here, which I want to use very precisely. I don't know if you've visited Coventry Cathedral. I'll just have to clean this a bit. But one of the things that struck me about Coventry was the way the whole edifice is supported on what look just like pennies. you know, there are these old pennies and great pillars rise off them. It's a marvellous artistic tension point, really. And I see this as a cathedral, that one part of the great pillar that you're actually going to be trying to develop in the children is their skills that help them learn. The skills of writing, the skills of reading, the skills of interpreting, all the names you can, all the things that are attached to skill learning, research skills, retention skills, memory skills, whatever. And then you've got, on our same penny rising up, you've got the capacity of the class to function as high-quality workers. I'm calling this the social health because, of course, this kind of learning is going to be done very socially. It's a lab that we're running. So there's the social health. And, of course, I've put health, not social sickness. And that will include social health, all the ways in which children begin to realise they can help one another, they can learn from one another, they can teach one another, they can share books, they can loan pens. It's all part of this, and the drama is going to be demanding it according to which aspects you want to introduce on your original chart. The next one, you see, is the actual knowledge that you want them to get. How will the drama serve the knowledge? And in our case, we know we're putting a lot of stress into the science here. And the last one is, let me get it right, the actual drama structure, the kinds of tasks you do in the drama, the way the drama changes in each episode. So you've got your drama and the forms you use for the kinds of learning you want. So sometimes the drama form will be trying to get this. It's going to demand a lot of sharing. It's going to demand decision-taking without argument. It's going to demand a self-conscious way of discussion that gets somewhere and doesn't drift. All these kinds of things. Sometimes your drama structure will be creating the demand to do to get the knowledge, to do the research and so on. And sometimes the drama will be creating the need of, let's step outside it and practice something. Now the way it's done then is through these episodes. You see, you build the episodes according to as you review the week. You say, I noticed when we were doing that particular episode of the grandmother telling you about the wind, you see, there's a certain reluctance to risk a drawing. So you might say, right, in my next episode I'll just see whether I can take it here or whether I'd better take it there first because they're a bit frightened of being laughed at. Right. So you say, right, the next episode will have more of a bias this side to try it there, or more of a bias this side to try it here, or when we've looked at what our grannies told us about the wind, whether in fact we'll start to get to here. Now I find this handy because it allows me to keep the balance in my timetable. Yes. Because to me, you see, I don't love my play. And the drama to me, at this stage of the learning, and used in the way I'm discussing, is always about how can I make school be a matter of concern to the children? How can I make their knowledge, the ways in which they cooperate, the kinds of skills they're developing, be all assisted? It's like a plant, really, isn't it, that I've drawn? Yes. I've made it, I started with a cathedral, but I think I've ended with a growing plant. But this is the way of it. This is my week. Yes. And in your case, it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour. And the rest of the week, it's saying we can spend a lot of time here because they care to get it right.
Mm.
And that's how, to me, I see the thing now as a practical teacher,
Yes.
keeping my track of it. So you see, that's something I think the children and I could do together in time. Now, I might, you see, take 2 or 3 for a bit, and then I might say, I've been trying to think back to how many things we've managed to do this week, and I'm really impressed. So shall I tell you what I think we've grown because we did these 3 things? I was very impressed by the way that you were all able to reach a conclusion about whatever. And I was really impressed when we'd forgotten our pens or I didn't have the paper, the way you suddenly all improvised it for me. And I was ever so impressed when we needed suddenly, because I'd forgotten something, to move into the computer room and how fast you did it. And there was no sort of scrambling and pushing. I thought that was very interesting. Can you think of anything else that we've managed to do well together?
Mm.
Can you think of the time when we tried it? It was when we were doing, was it, you know, and so on. What about this? Because I noticed that when we stopped and we looked at those books, all that started with Once Upon a Time, you know, I thought when you look what we wrote, there's a fair amount of very, very clear writing there and attention being paid. And I liked the way people had crossed a word out and corrected it because they'd done a bit of checking up or had a word with each other about it. I think these are all, you know, we're quite a skillful lot, really, in that. And I'm trying to think what I now know about the wind that I sort of hadn't thought about before, you know, and so it goes on. And this allows you to say, some of these are more favourite than others. I found I enjoyed that one. Do you remember that one? I don't know which you enjoyed most. But if you like, we can go on with some more.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
Now, you might think, oh, I can't think of all this at once. This is all going to, you know, drive me nuts. And you probably will find a better image than my cathedral come plant.
Mm.
But we do need... I mean, one of the things I think that panics us at the moment about the curriculum is, how am I going to keep track of everything?
Yes.
And I don't see why the children shouldn't help me. So one of my displays, or your displays in your classroom, might well be, on one wall, a track-keeping display. That every Friday, or whatever, you use your drama 10 minutes, but say, right, let's get up to date.
Yes.
And then you'd move a little bit into, this was the time of Once Upon a Time, this was the time of Before the Dawn of Time, this was the time when our grandmothers told us about the wind, this was the time when this was the time, this was the time. And I'm just wondering where we should go next in our drama.
Mm.
Now, you may find, if you've got your myth written, and you've managed to get any evidence from them about atmosphere or wind, and I haven't gone into how that might happen yet, this is when you might start the second kind of drama, where you've amassed a sort of conceptual notion of wind, but now you want to get all the practice in that gives the real vocabulary that geographers use, if it's geography, that scientists use, for actually describing this thing that nobody can see. And for that, you'd have to move out of mythology, and it would move over into the practice of meteorology. So they'd stop being myth makers, and remember, they've never been living in the Stone Age. We've never said, let's act out being in the Stone Age. We've just found ourselves in it now and again, clustered, afraid of the wind, you see, to get the myth written. But when the myth is written, we then may say, right, these are the things we know about the atmosphere, that those people knew because they felt it all. Now then, this is when we can start running a meteorological enterprise.